Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that this is my deep dive into the Lenormand system. The system that was started in Germany and called the Game of Hope, but when it moved to France, it was given the name of Madame Lenormand, a very popular, very well-known and influential diviner, seer, psychic. And the deck was given her name for sales purposes, for publicity. And so with that addition, this system became famous, popular internationally, and is still very well used, yes? And I've really been finding this deep dive into the Lenormand system very beneficial for me, and I hope that you're getting even a portion of what I'm getting out of this as well. If you're getting even a portion of what I'm getting from this deep dive, it's a benefit for you, and I hope it is a benefit for you. I hope that you are, if not learning, at least growing in some way by sharing this journey with me. So, I'm here for you. Thank you for being here with me. And I've got a spread already laid out. I've also got a shop. I don't know if you know this, but I also have a shop on my website, derekjohnthomas.com. And if you want to go there, there's a tarot reading shop. You can order a reading from me there. End of commercial. Just a heads up, because this is fairly new for me. And probably it's even newer for you. So there is that. I'll put a QR code up here if you want to use it. There will also be a... I can't put links in there yet, but in the description box below, there will be the web address for my shop and my website. Same thing, right? Okay, so there are all those things. And I have, again, a spread already laid out, but before we look at that spread together, as usual, I'd like us to draw our attention together on a single topic. And you saw the title for this video already, right? And I think I'm going to keep the title that's in my head, and you're probably already seeing that title below, Cutting Through the Clouds. I've been going back and forth on that title, but I think Cutting Through the Clouds is the one we're going to go with. And so what is that? What does that mean when we say cutting through the clouds? Or probably more correctly, what does Derek mean when he says cutting through the clouds is the most appropriate question. And for me, what that means, especially looking through the Lenormand cards that we have in this spread, that means cutting through the confusion. Now, finding a way to cut away or cut through the fog, the uncertainty that surrounds us. And how do we do that? How do we cut through that confusion? How do we cut through the clouds? Some people I know who are very logical thinkers, and I've participated in this process as well, make lists. Yeah, maybe pros and cons. Want to do, don't want to do. They make, or we make lists. I do this too, and I'm not discrediting this method at all. I think it's a very useful, very rational, very productive way of making decisions. Pros and cons, likes, don't likes, desires, things I don't want to experience, right? And we look at the list, we compare the sides of the paper, the positives and the negatives, and then we can make a clearer decision. At least we think. But I've probably you're doing this right now, or you have this kind of ritual, you have this thing that you do that I'm about to say. Journaling. Yeah? I have found journaling anew. I've rediscovered the power of journaling. And I've kept journals. I've kept journals for many years, actually, off and on. And probably you have kept a journal if you aren't all right now keeping one and have that practice for yourself. But I really have found that my journaling practice now has allowed me to open up to a new evolution in my life, and has allowed me to cut through some clouds, cut through some confusion. And the journaling practice that I have now is less rational and more self-inquiry based. Now, some people might say inventory, but for me, inventory sounds, again, very logical, rational, pros, cons. I take an inventory. It sounds like a very, like I said, rational process. And I'm trying to keep my journaling process a little more irrational, a little less rigid, a little less formal, a little more intuitive, a little more exploratory. So what am I doing? And again, this probably is not news for you, because I know a lot of people have their own style of journaling. What I've been doing recently, and what's really, really been helpful for me, is I have taken 5 oracle decks. Okay, you might be saying, this man is crazy. I've been taking 5 oracle decks and my pendulum. I have a pendulum. And each one of these decks for me right now represents one of the 4 elements plus 5, or 5 elements. Yeah, spirit, fire, water, air, and earth. The one deck seems very spiritual. One of them seems kind of passion-driven, energy-driven. One of them seems very psychological, unconscious based. One of them seems very clear, rational. One of them seems very earthy, grounded. Yeah, so I've got those laid out. And what I do is I use my pendulum to choose which one of those 5 decks I'm going to use for that night. So I use my pendulum to choose the deck, and then I shuffle the deck and I pull a card that, with the question of which card is going to give me the best prompt for a journal entry to blah, 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 to increase hope, to increase love, to discover my inner truth, to, fill in the blank. And so I shuffle and I pull the card and I look at the guidebook and I look at the card, and then I start writing. I look at the card, the guidebook and the card, and I find a question. I try to distill what the card and the guidebook are saying into a couple of sentences which flow into a question which I begin exploring the answer to in my journal. And I've been doing that every night. And I've found that it has really helped me open up in a very interesting way. I mean, it's like this opening is not very definable, but I notice things in my experience have begun flowing in a very different way. And in that sense, it really feels like an evolution. And it really feels like I've cut through some clouds, and I'm continuing to cut through clouds with that new process of journaling that I have evolved for myself. That makes sense, yes? And I think that idea of finding a way that suits us the best to cut through our self-imposed confusion is really an essential part to living an intentional life. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you need to find your purpose. You need to find your passion. And honestly, we don't need to find any of that because that's already there. Yeah? What we have defined for ourselves as our purpose is already here. It's not something that's imposed upon us from without, from some divine source that is not present within our lives. Right? Our purpose, our passion those things are things which in cooperation with and co-creatively with the divine, with the eternal natures that we have and continue to evolve from within. So they're there whether we like it or not. The question is, are we aware of them? And I would say 99.999% of the time, the reason we are not clear about those things, we haven't felt those things, we haven't discovered those things, is because we have imposed upon ourselves layer upon layer upon layer of confusion and expectations that we have absorbed from our environments, from the people around us, from society at large, from our past experiences, etc. And so, this week's Lenormand spread really seems to me to be pointing towards cutting through confusion and discovering truth within in a very interesting way. And so, friends, we're going to look at the spread together. And after we look at the spread briefly, I will, just in case you are new here, I'll tell you what you saw. Generally, I'll give you the description of that spread, and then we'll break that spread down into its two major component parts and read those component parts together. Are you all ready, friends? Here's the spread. Like I said, this is the deck I have used for the last week or so, right? It's a beautiful decks. These are the decks that I have used for the last week or so, and they are beautiful decks. They are from the same creator. The creator names herself Anna K. And so there's the Anna K. Lenormand and the Anna K. Tarot. And there will be a link in the description box below if you want to go and purchase these decks from her. Now, her tarot is also available mass market on Amazon and other places, but I would recommend going and getting the decks from her, especially if you want to buy both. Because I always prefer to support the creator directly rather than through a mass market environment if I possibly can. And so since this opportunity is available, I suggest going to that link and giving her your money directly. And these decks are wonderful. Now, just in case you were new here, what you saw were 6 cards in the setter. They are from the Lenormand deck. And it's in what I call an above-below spread. The 3 cards above give us what we are placing our attention on, what is in our heads, what is in our conscious awareness. The 3 cards below give us what's below that. It could be unconscious, it could be pre-conscious, it could be the things that are moving around underneath the things that we are perceiving directly, if that makes sense. And then there were 4 cards in the corners, right? Those are from her Tarot deck. And it's called the Anna K. Tarot. And they are for the 4 classical elements: fire, water, air, and earth. So fire was here for our passions and our leadership and our inspiration. And down here was water for our emotions and our unconscious and our those poetic arts like music and poetry. Yeah? And then up here was a card for air for our rational minds, our point of view, our communication. And then down here was a card for earth, which is where our work, our resources, our health resides. And I read those 4 cards in what I call, well, what everybody calls, elemental dignities. Elemental dignities. That means that for each element, there's an element that is helpful, that is well dignified. It increases the energy of that element. There's an element that's neutral. It neither adds to nor subtracts from, and it'll walk side by side with that element. And then there's an ill-dignified element which saps energy from or draws down the power of the element. So for fire, fire and fire together, they're very, very happy. Fire and air together, they're well dignified, they build each other up. Fire and earth together, they are neutral. They are copacetic, they don't bother each other, they walk very comfortably together. Fire and water, on the other hand, are ill-dignified, and they will drain energy from each other, they will smother each other, they will disempower each other. Maybe not completely, but to some extent there's a discomfort there. So that's how we're going to read those cards after we read the 6 Lenormand cards. So friends, are you ready? What I will do now is I will show you those 6 Lenormand cards once more so you get a refresher image, and then we'll read those 6 cards together. Here we go! Friends, what you just saw from left to right were, above, the man, and then a card that is very interesting, we'll get to it in just a moment, and then the letter. And then below, you saw the clouds, the scythe, and the dog. And so maybe you already got an inkling why I titled this video Cutting Through the Clouds, right? It was those 2 cards below, the clouds and the scythe. But we're not going to start there. We're going to start on the top line. We'll start with the man, the wild card, and the letter. And that wild card is a card that was added by Anna to this deck. And this card has a little bit of the flavor of the book card in most Lenormand decks. So it's a very interesting card. It is different. It can be used as a significator for the querent or the seeker if that's how you want to use the card. But I shuffled it into the deck as an additional card to her Lenormand system. And there's no playing card attribution to this card, which is a little maybe unfortunate, but it is outside of the main system, so I understand. And we're going to start off with the man. Let's start off with the man for this reading, because that's where we start, usually. And this is a wonderfully drawn man card, and this is basically us, right? This is us in the reading. It could be a leader, it could be a partner, it could be the active quality of being a human being. I love this. I don't love that this person has a gun over his shoulder, and it looks like there's another gun at, maybe it's a knife? I'm not sure. It looks like this person's got something else in a weapons holder at his hip. But the art in this deck is fabulous, I think. I love the art in this deck. And the man card is us because I don't know who you are. I mean, I might know who you are, but I don't know all of who you are. And I know not all of you are cis males cis males, right? Cisgendered males. Not all of you are that. But I am. And so I am reading through me for us. For you, for you, for you, for you, for us. And so, because I'm reading through me instead of directly for you, the man card is us. And it has nothing to do with body. It just means us in this spread. Whether we are in male bodies, we're in female bodies, we are in intersex bodies, we are transgender, we are cisgender, that has no significance. What this card just means is us. And the lady card will be partner, because of the way that I'm reading for us. That makes sense, yes? So this is us. And so the card that is defining us right now in this spread is the wild card, right? And the wild card, what do we see here? We see what looks like not really a harlequin, but kind of like a joker, kind of, yeah? We see a harlequin hat, but the entire figure is just white. There's no color on, well, you can see eyes, you can see rouged cheeks, but there's no, I think that is mostly to make this figure look less scary and a little bit more alive, right? The adding of the rouged cheeks. This is a very whitewashed person. There's very little character, there's a little color to this person. Even though the environment that this person is in is a little bit cluttered. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff around this person. And you can see below this person, there's a picture of a cat that looks like it's staring up at the person sitting on the floor. You see the cat down there? Right here, the black cat? Gorgeous card. According to the creator of this deck, Anna Kay, this is the card of the indeterminable, the unable to be pigeonholed or to be placed in a box. It's also an open question, an unknown factor. It could be wondering, but there's a difficulty to read. Now, the poker face kind of difficulty to read. You don't know what the person is thinking. You don't know what is going on in there. Yeah? Which makes the person a little, or the subject or whatever, indeterminable, right? Difficult to pigeonhole, difficult to put it in its place because we're not exactly sure what it is. And so that is what's defining us right now. And because it's not defining the other, it's defining us. What does this point me towards? Let me put these in the correct order. What does this point me towards? This points me towards the idea that maybe there's at least an aspect, if not a number of aspects, that we don't really know about ourselves. Now, we haven't been able to figure out about ourselves. There's an unknown factor about us, to us. And we're having perhaps a difficult time reading ourselves. We haven't been able to find our place, to put ourselves in a place yet. Now, there's also the idea of our being free spirits, perhaps, of being unable to fit into a box, and fitting into a box is not necessarily a good thing. But I think for us right now here, this is telling us that there are at least a couple, if not a few to many aspects of self that we are unaware of. And it's pointing it out to us. Why? Because this is a good time to start finding out what they are. Right? We've come to a place in our lives when it's time for us to really discover some more stuff about ourselves. Have you been feeling that recently? That it's time for me to know a little bit more about myself, about what is going on in here. What is it that I really, what is growing within me? And I'm not talking like the old Alien movie where that thing bursts out of the Patient Zero's chest, the first alien we saw on screen, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But what things are growing in me? We're always growing and evolving when we live our lives intentionally, because we evolve into the people who have the experiences that we want to have. Now, flowing with intention is a life of evolution, because the opposite of not evolving, of stagnating, is the path of death. And there really is no death. These bodies do stop and disorganize, right? But there is no death. It's just what we call this thing. The thing that would actually be death, of everything actually stopping, does not exist. Things disorganize and reorganize in different forms. And we, as non-physical beings, these eternal natures that we are, disengage from the physical body and continue on doing and being other things. Yes? But right now, have you been feeling the desire to find out more about what's going on in here, what's evolving? How am I becoming? Not what am I becoming, but how am I becoming? Who am I becoming? These are some very interesting questions. And I think this is a good time for us to start asking ourselves these questions in whatever way is best for us. And it's interesting that this is the next card. The letter. What is the letter? The letter is a written thing. It's something that either we write or somebody else writes. And it's usually a one-to-one communication. Now, yes, there are group letters that go out, but this letter is not pointing towards a newsletter, although it could incorporate that. But we generally think of the letter as a one-to-one communication. Right? It can be a written document. It could be a contract, especially if the ring is nearby. It could be a contract. It could be a promising, a written document of promise of some sort. It can be a message, a written message. It could be email. It could be a text message. It could be any form of written communication. But again, usually not on the broad scale, usually from one to another. And it usually is something that will take a little bit longer than perhaps the writer card might take, but not necessarily. It's not completely exclusive to that. And we're not really talking about timing, I don't think. Although the process of self-inquiry that is indicated by the man and the wild card, that suggestion, could take time. I mean, it could be telling us that, but what I think it really is telling us is, so how do we do that? Now, there's this indeterminate aspect, or there are these indeterminate aspects of self. How do we determine those things? Well, I think the way to do that is to do the writing. Now, to write our inquiry, to write our unconscious onto paper, for us to experience in a more tactile, a more focused way. This is a wonderful, wonderful image of a letter, right? This is back in the day when we would only be able to write from one person to another. Now, that person who receives it might share that one page or series of pages with other people, but it was a one-to-one communication. And so, for us now, that one-to-one communication is me to me, you to you, right? That's understandable, I hope. So, we've got 3 cards below. From left to right, we had the clouds, the scythe, and the dog. And let's start off with the clouds. Here it is. Here they are. Now, clouds, to me, are beautiful up in the sky, but when we are in the middle of them, we cannot see very far, right? We can't see what's ahead of us, what's around us. They make our present situation confusing. We don't know where we are. We don't know what's around us. We don't know a lot. Now, a wonderful thing with the Lenormand system, I think, is that the clouds card can be read directionally, and it kind of depends upon the deck that you're using which direction things are going to be falling in, right? If it's a good deck, to me, if it's a good deck, there will be a very clear dark side and there will be a very clear light side to the clouds. And so that's the directionality for the clouds for me. The light side will be something that we can't see clearly yet, but things are starting to clear. The dark side would be the opposite of that, right? Will be things that are not clear, but perhaps stormy, and they're going to take a lot longer to get clarified. And so you saw that in this line, because the clouds card was on the left, the rest of the cards were on the dark side. So there's very strong confusion here. Now, there are other meanings for the clouds, yeah. They could be problems, they could be delays. The clouds could indicate ambiguity as well as confusion. Those things that are intangible, and things that you can't really grasp. Can't really grasp clouds, right? They seem to have form, but you get closer to them, that form seems to dissipate, and you definitely can't grab onto it. Unless it's in a dream. But yeah, so that we've got that feeling of things being unclear, very strongly indicated in those three cards, especially the two cards above, with the man and the wild card, right? It's this card below those two that really solidified for me that idea that we don't really know what's going on in here. Yeah? And so what is the next card? The next card is Scythe, which is what? It's the great cutter of the Lenormand system. It's the great thing that cuts off. But it also harvests, right? The scythe is used to clear away things in a very swift, sharp manner. It's a little dangerous, but it's also beneficial. Now, getting rid of weeds is beneficial. Cutting down the wheat or whatever grain it is when it is ready, when it's time for harvest, is beneficial. So there are positive aspects to the scythe as well, but that cutting action can be painful. If we are the wheat, if we are the thing being cut, it's painful. If we are the cutter, sometimes that cutting action is very beneficial. It's a sign of harvest. Now, generally, we think of the scythe as cutting things off. It can indicate surgery if we read for health. For me, I do not read for health. It could be harvesting, right? Gathering in the harvest. And there's a directionality for this card as well. Yeah, there's a sharp side to the scythe and a blunt side to the scythe. The sharp side would be where the actual blade is pointing. The blunt side is generally where the handle is pointing. Now, unfortunately, in this deck, if you look at it, the blade and the handle seem to be pointing in the same direction. You see that? That the blade is here, and then the handle seems to come off this way as well. So, this is one point in this deck that I find a little bit unfortunate. Not so much that I would disrecommend this deck, but rather, I wish that this card were drawn just a little bit differently, so that it was really clear that one side is the sharp side and one side is the blunt side, but I have to make the decision on my own. So, for me, the sharp side for this card in this deck is this side, and then the blunt side would be this side. Right? So the sharp side is what hurts, what will be painful, what experience might be what? What can be, but also what can be harvested, right? The blunt side, this side, right? Yes, this side gives us, it's like a kick in the shin. Hey, wake up. There's this going on. Yeah? It makes you active, that you have to do something now. There's a demanding side to the other one. Now, the scythe can also be a person, right? It could be, it's attributed to the Jack of Diamonds. So it could also indicate an aggressive young man, generally younger. The older man would be the King of Diamonds, the younger man would be the Jack of Diamonds. So a younger man, perhaps, someone who's maybe streetwise, maybe a little bit hurtful, maybe a little brash. But it could also indicate a surgeon, yeah, a doctor who uses a knife, like the scythe, could be a surgeon. So if you have somebody like that in your life, maybe that person will be of benefit to you to help cut through the clouds. So what we see here is that the side being what? Stirred, incited, being energized, yeah, being activated. That's the word I'm looking at. The side being activated is the side of the clouds. So our confusion has been activated. Now, below our awareness, our confusion, our uncertainty, our feelings of ambiguity have been activated here. And perhaps what's being damaged is the next card. The dog. Who is the dog? What is the dog? The dog is friendship. The dog could be a friend, but friendship, loyalty, reliability. So when we think of a dog, we think of a furry beast who, if we got a good relationship, if we are good stewards of our furry beasts, this beast will be loyal to us, will help protect us, will help soothe us, will help experience life with us. And that's what they want to do. And in return, we give them shelter, we give them food, we give them comfort, we give them attention, we give them a pack to be a part of. So if the relationship is good, is proper, the dog will look to us as the pack leader and we will care for the dog. But as a member of the pack, the dog will be loyal to the pack leader and protect the pack leader from things coming from the outside, right? So there's that loyalty, that reliability, that feeling of being safe. It could also be a person, yeah? The dog can be an actual friend. It could be like now one of the guidebooks calls this a female, a buddy woman, which I think is a very interesting term, but a male or female friend. It can be a platonic chum, according to some people, right? It's not a love relationship, it's a platonic, okay, it's a love relationship, but not a romantic one. It's a platonic love relationship, right? And this is just the cutest puppy in the world. Gotta say it. I have to say it, right? So this is what could be being hurt. And maybe in this reading, it's that loyalty to self. It's that reliability to self is being damaged by our confusion. And maybe our reliability to other people is also being damaged because of that. As an extension of that self-damage, we start damaging our relationships with other people. Highly possible. Does that makes sense to you, right? If we are damaging ourselves, can we show up for other people? Can we be there for other people if we can't be there for ourselves? Highly unlikely, yes? So, below the surface, that's what I see happening for us, is that our confusion is growing. Our feeling of ambiguity, of uncertainty is growing, and that's energized, and our loyalty, our reliability to self and to others is being damaged. And so this is something that we want to take care of. Now, I didn't do what I usually do at the beginning of the spread, but it's time, I think, now. This feels like a fairly negative spread is what I'm saying, but that doesn't mean that, oh no, we're in danger, danger, Will Robinson. It's not that kind of a spread. Okay, so there's something that needs to be, there is something that we would benefit from taking care of. Right? There's something that we would benefit from finding a solution to. And I also got that sense from just my first glance at the spread overall, because what do we have? The man is a neutral card on top. The wild card has nothing, so it's also neutral, I guess. And then we had the letter neutral. So the top, our conscious sphere, is all neutral. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's just neutral. Right? Below the surface, we had the clouds, which are negative, the scythe, which is generally considered negative, although it could be neutral, I think, and then the dog, which is one positive. We have one positive and two negatives. So below the surface, there's this negative energy going on, and above, we don't have any strong positivity to counteract that. And so it's blah, that white noise in the sense of clouds and confusion. Those clouds and confusion are not helping us right now. And we would benefit from finding a solution. Now, we're going to read this spread in a couple of different ways, right? Let's read the columns now. The first column is what? It's the man and the clouds. This really, really supports that idea that it's us it's us, we are the ones who are confused. We are the ones who are we don't know ourselves. Right? This is the main idea, and this card modifies this one. We are the confusing ones. And we're the confusing ones to who? To ourselves. Because the question every week is, how can we live our lives more intentionally? Well, we got to realize this. We don't know ourselves well enough right now. We're in the middle of clouds, and we can't see ourselves for who we are, for in our fullness. And it's not that we are confusing people. It's that our self-perception is confused. Our self-perception is clouded, unclear. Now, the next one, this next column is what? The wild card over the scythe. So, it's this indeterminability, this unable to pigeonhole, unable to know. The unknown factor is what is cutting, is what is damaging. This confusion, this unknowability is the thing that is cutting off for us, is painful. It's separating us, perhaps even from ourselves. Right? And then the next cards, the letter and the dog. Right? So, some written communication is beneficial here. Yeah? And what kind of communication? Friendly communication. And a communication that is reliable and that we can be loyal to. A loyal communication, a reliable communication, which makes me think what? This is a communication that I think should be done like on a regular basis. That reliability, that dependability. makes me think journaling, yeah? What does that make you think of? Regular communication, and the main focus here is us, to ourselves. So yes, journaling is, I think, the recommended solution. And we've got some chevrons to look at. We have the downward pointing chevron, which would begin with the man, the scythe, and then the letter. And then we have the upward pointing chevron, which begins with the clouds, the wild card, and the dog. And it's amazing how these cards were arranged, I think. How the man and the clouds, the wild card and the clouds, they all are interrelated very strongly in this spread. So let's start off with the upward pointing chevron, the upward pointing arrow, the thing that's coming up into our conscious sphere. Yeah? And in the center is what? It's this indeterminability, this open question. What's it all about, Alfie? This unknown factor. And the wondering about that. What's going on? Now, if this were the sun with this card, we'd say, oh, we're realizing information about ourselves. We're realizing knowledge. But what we get is these questions are confusing for us. We can't see clearly. These questions, this unknowable factor is confusing. It's intangible right now. There's a darkness to it, right? Because let's see. Let me make sure. Okay, these are in the wrong order. Sorry, these were in the wrong order. Here we go. Whoa, and there goes my dog. So, you saw. Oh no, that was my clouds card. I'll be right back. You see, even with the table in front of me, helping me a lot, I still get excited and cards will go flying. So, here we go. And now I've got to rearrange these cards again because I got myself all messed up. Okay, so, yes, this is the correct arrangement. Yeah? The clouds, the wild card, and then the dog. So, this indeterminability, this open question is on the dark side of the clouds still. And then we got the dog, right? What does that mean? So, even though we right now don't know what's going on, we know that there is a friend in there to discover. There is a loyal, reliable being there within us to be discovered, even though right now we're in the middle of confusion and not knowing what it is that we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. But we have some good indications that what we can discover is that loyalty to self aspect of self, that inner friend that will help us to live our lives intentionally. Yes? And then we got what? We've got the scythe at the bottom, and we've got the man on this side and the letter on this side. Yes? So we've got the man, the scythe, and the letter here. I'm sorry, not the letter. The man, the scythe, and the... Yes. The man, the scythe, and the letter. So, the main card is still the scythe for this trio. The scythe. What is that telling us? Well, again, it's the cutting off. But it's also the harvest. Right? So for here, I think what drops into our core, what drops into our solar plexus, into our center, our grounded natures, is we have the potential to harvest. Harvest what? Harvest ourselves. We have the potential to harvest ourselves. By writing, by doing the work of journaling, by writing it out. And maybe we could write it out for other people. I mean, if you want to publish a book, that's great. But I think this spread right now is pointing us towards journaling, is pointing towards writing to ourselves. And in that writing to ourselves, we will find a harvest, we'll find a bounty, we'll find the solutions perhaps. We'll get what we want. Why do I say that? There's a little bit more evidence here. Yeah? If we look at the inserts for the top row of cards, we had the ace for the man, we have nothing for the wild card, but we have the 7 for the letter. 7 plus the ace makes 8, which gives us the coffin. Now, the coffin is what? It's endings. It's finishing things. It's putting things in boxes as well, right? It could be mourning. It could be cancellations. It could be emptiness, the emptiness of mourning, of death. First, it could be losses. It can be renewal for some people, but that's not a direction I would go in. So there's an ending here. There's a full stop. The 3 cards below give us the king for the clouds, the jack for the scythe. So that's 13 is the king, 11 is the jack. That gives us 24. And then the dog is 10, which gives us 34, which is the fish. And the fish is money, it's resources, it's abundance, it's the ability to flow with our power of intention. So these two ideas together, endings will bring abundance. It's an ending of abundance. It's an ending of being, which brings the ability to flow, which gives us resources. And so what are we ending? We're ending the confusion will be the thing that allows us to open up to our abundance, open up to our flow with the power of intention. Like fish flowing through the river. So this really does strengthen that idea of the spread pointing towards and teaching us that we want to solve this situation, this confusion about self. And we've got 4 tarot cards, which I think are going to help us in that direction. So friends, are you ready? Are you ready to move on to the tarot? Let me show you the cards and we'll talk about them right now. Here they are. Friends, you just saw from the top left in the fire we had the Emperor. In the bottom right in water we had the 4 of Pentacles. In the upper right in air we had the High Priestess. And then in the lower left in earth we had the Ace of Wands. So there's nothing here that is highly ill-dignified. There's one card that is fairly well dignified, and the rest are pretty neutral, which is okay, yes? And so we're going to start in the fire with the best situated card. We have the Emperor in the fire section. Now the Emperor in the in the Golden Dawn tradition, I should say, which includes both Thoth and the smith-waite, the Harris Crowley deck, or the smith-waite deck. The Emperor is associated with Aries, which is one of the fire signs, right? Yeah, Aries is the domicile of Mars, from which we get cardinal fire's vital attributes entering this spread. Cardinal fire. Let's move forward. Let's direct ourselves towards these wonderful things that we're inspired to do, right? Oh, let's do that, and let's do that, and let's do that. Oh, that looks interesting. Let's do that, and let's be in charge, and let's take care of stuff, right? So, the Emperor in the fire section is very well situated. It's a card. It's a beautiful Emperor here, right? We see the Emperor's shield above the Emperor's head. We see that redness that we associate with the Emperor. Don't really see the Aries indication in this particular card personally. If you see it, let me know. Yeah, it would be nice to have seen those ram's heads in this card to remind us of Aries, but they're not there, at least not that I can see. Still, the Emperor is the one for me of male creativity. No, I would like to step that back. Masculine creativity. Yeah? Because it has no difference what body we are in. Again, we're in male bodies, female bodies, intersex bodies, trans bodies, cis bodies, doesn't matter. We all have masculine and what we call, for want of better words, masculine and feminine traits, which are not associated with our physical form, I believe. So, you're a woman, a cisgendered woman, you have masculine traits in there available to you if you're ready for them. Yeah? Me in my cisgendered male body, I have feminine traits that I access as often as I possibly can. Because we should be filling out that spectrum within ourselves as we mature as human beings, I believe. And so, here we are, this fire card. We all have that masculine creative aspect within ourselves. The creativity of organizing things and putting things in the right places and connecting things and, yeah? Building structures and building cities and building stuff and organizing stuff and cutting things into the pieces so that they're all proportionate and that kind of organization, a very masculine organization, right? That kind of creativity. There's also authority here. We want to be in charge. We want to be in charge of that structure that we're creating. You know, we want to be the boss a little bit. Yeah? Maybe we want to be the daddy protector. We want to protect the people behind us or around us in that big daddy kind of way. Again, it has no matter what kind of body we inhabit. Sometimes the smallest, most petite woman will step up and be the big daddy. Right? Yeah? So, and that's not a stupid thing. It's not a crazy thing. I'm not laughing at that. Sometimes the smallest woman, smallest in form, will step up and be the big daddy. It's when it's time. And so, yeah, it's that kind of energy that we all have within us, whether we tap into it or not. Now, we can be the father figure, whatever that traditionally meant, in the most positive sense, right? Taking care of the resources, taking care of the rules, maybe, taking care of the form, supporting, protecting from danger, right? Going out and clearing out the yard. And again, it has it doesn't matter what body that activity is being housed in, yeah? So we want that. That's where our passions are. That's where our instincts are drawing us towards. We want to be that form-making, creative being, right? And in water, this is a little bit of a problem. In our emotional sphere, this is a well-dignified, this is a well-dignified card. A well-dignified card. Earth in water, they build each other up. They add strength to each other. So in our emotional sphere, we have this Four of Pentacles attribute. That's where our emotions are moving us towards. Yeah? And here, what do we see? We see three people behind the wall. We see one person in front of the wall with the stuff, with the coins, looking like he, she, or they are hoarding the coins from the people behind, and even hiding the coins from the people behind the wall. So, while this card can, in the most positive sense, be saving money, it can be security, yeah, having stable resources, there's a real sense of keeping my resources away from other people in this card. Being miserly, controlling, being frugal. So while we want to step up and perhaps be the authority, be the masculine creative one, our emotions are drawing us toward mine, 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 this is mine, my precious, yeah? Which stands in the way of our being able to express our authority and being able to be the magnanimous ruler of our kingdoms, queendoms, whatever. Right? So this is problematic. There's this urge to hoard, to keep, to protect self rather than protect others. Yeah? And in that protection, there's a stagnation there. A healthy economy is one where resources flow in and things flow out. Resources flow out, yeah? There's a dynamic flow to a healthy economy, whether it's a country or a family or a person. Money flows in, money flows out. In a good, well-structured way. That's a healthy economy. When the money flows in and we won't let it go, 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 we get heavy, we start to sink, we lose full access to the power of intention. And then up in our mind, what do we have? We have the high priestess. So where our rational mind usually sits, we seem to be looking into the unconscious. The high priestess is associated with the moon in the Golden Dawn system, which is domiciled in Cancer, which is a water sign, right? The moon is in a water sign, from which we get cardinal water's vital attributes entering our spread here. We had cardinal fire here, and here we have cardinal water. And the high priestess, this is a beautiful, beautiful rendition of the high priestess. We've got the high priestess sitting by what looks like a pool against maybe a tree, leaning her back against a tree. His back, well, she looks like she has breasts, so could be transgender male, who knows? Okay, so they're, or a cross-dressing male, could be. They're back against the tree. And we see the phases of the moon rising before the high priestess's eyes. The high priestess is very comfortable. And one of the moons is resting in the high priestess's lap as well. So this is the card of intuition, sacred knowledge, the divine feminine. Whereas the emperor is the creative masculine, here in our mind we have the divine feminine. A nice balance there, right? The subconscious mind, clairvoyance, premonitions, perceptivity. It's also the looking within and discovering self from the unconscious. Whereas the hermit is really an introspective kind of guy. The high priestess is the deep perspective, sacred perspective, the deep soul diving one. And sometimes she sits in protection, but in this card she really is not sitting there protecting the sacred knowledge from us. We don't get that at all. She's the gazer, the looker in this card. So that's where our attention is. Our attention can be drawn within to our unconscious, to those areas that we are not sure about. Remember that Lenormand spread we just looked at? And then in the earth, our active area, the stuff that we want to work on, the work we want to do, our resources. We have the Ace of Wands. This is a beautiful Ace of Wands. That girl crossing the bridge, the tree trunk bridge, that one big old wand that she's walking across. Okay, it's not a tree trunk, it's a stick. But it's a sturdy stick, right? It's bearing her weight very, very well. And so we use this fiery wand to cross over into a new experience, into a new life. On a bright sunny day full of fire. And she's sitting this fire card is sitting right beneath the Emperor. Adding flame, adding power to the Emperor above, I think. And wands and earth are neutral. They're fine, they're happy together. And this is the card of inspiration, of new opportunities for, not the new opportunity of the Ace of Pentacles, of new resources, maybe a new job, but this is the new opportunity to explore something, to create something. Right? It's growth, it's potential. A fiery potential. So, as we look within to our unconscious, maybe that's what we discover. We discover our inspiration. We discover the clarity of our potential to grow, to become, to evolve. But it requires doing this, right? It requires the deep looking within. And it asks of us to stop doing this so that our fire our authority, our active creativity can be realized. Yeah? We gotta let go of our clutchiness, and maybe it's our clutchiness which is perhaps causing our cloudy confusion in the Lenormand deck, in the Lenormand part of the spread already. Maybe that's because of this clutching on to resources, things we've already have, the life we've already created. We're clutching on to stuff that we shouldn't be clutching. We don't want to say shouldn't. We're clutching on to things that it's not helping us, right? It's dragging us down. Whereas here we want to dive deep, not be dragged deep. Does that difference make sense to you? The more we clutch, the more we sink and we become immobile. But if, as the high priestess, we dive in, we can swim through the unconscious waters. To find clarity, to discover who we are, to discover that which we are evolving into, to discover how we are growing and evolving. And cutting through those clouds. Yeah? So friends, here we are. This is the end of what I see from the reading thus far. And if you can see more, let me know in the comments below. If you would read this differently, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And again, if you want a reading from me, there was that QR code earlier on in the video, but in the description box you'll be able to find my website. I want to say there will be a link, but YouTube will not allow me to enter links in there yet. Now we need to grow a little bit more. So friends, thank you. Thank you for doing all those things. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing. All of those things help the channel, help other people find us, help the community to grow. And thank you for joining me on this journey through the Lenormand system. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.